Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about how to set up category level retailing for those that do not scan items or are not currently 100% scanning. To do this, we have to have some prerequisites in place. One being that setting up categories in CStorePro. We talked about this in the previous video, so if you don't know how to do that, please refer back to the previous training video. Second, we have to set up all your vendors in CStorePro and categorize them according to the categories that you have created. That way, whenever you make purchases from that vendor, they're automatically retailed into that category. Again, for that, you can refer back to the previous training video in which we discussed that method. The last thing that we need to do in order for this to happen is obviously you have to be doing your daily reports, entering in your sales into CStorePro, and that's done through the date closing tab. So be sure you do that or watch that training video if you haven't done so already. So once you've done those three things, we can actually start seeing your sales as well as all your purchases that you're making, and then track your inventory accordingly. So the first thing we'll need to do is go into grocery and dashboard. Now the dashboard gives you a good idea of what your sales are for a given month and what your purchases are for that month. And then at the bottom it tells you what your current inventory at cost is, current inventory at retail, and what your approximate margins in your store are. It also gives you a good indication of how much inventory you have in your store, meaning in this case at the rate that you're selling you only have inventory for 19 days, meaning you're probably not stocking and fulfilling your customers' needs. Now under grocery, if you ever get an inventory guide to come into your store, you typically want to do an inventory adjustment. So what this does, and this looks very familiar, usually your inventory guide will give you your inventory in these categories or however many categories you have. Typically you want to set up the categories according to the way your inventory guide is giving it to you. Once that's done, you just want to enter in whenever the inventory guide comes in. Let's say he came in on the 10th of this month. You select the 10th and you go ahead and enter in your inventory at retail. Now based on the margins that you had set for your category, the system will automatically calculate the cost. So for example, if I come in here, enter in $66,000, my cost for this inventory was this much. My inventory adjustment at retail was this much, and my inventory adjustment at cost was this much based on my margins. So once I do this, I just go ahead and hit finish here. You notice that I did an adjustment already for the last month. If I look at my adjustment details, I'll get a good understanding of what my adjustments were and where my inventory shrinkage and overage was, in which category. So that's one way to do adjustments. And obviously if you're setting this up for the first time, you want to pick a good starting point for doing this. So make sure your inventory guy comes in, and whenever he comes in, you go ahead and enter in the adjustments. One thing to keep in mind as you're entering in these adjustments, you want to make sure that all your invoices are retailed prior to entering in the adjustments. To make sure of that, just go to grocery, purchasing, invoices, and click on unretailed invoices. Now you'll see that there's a bunch of invoices that are left to be retailed. So if I want to retail these, I can simply click on retail by category, and specify that for this category I purchased this amount and this is my retail value, and then simply just add those in there. Another way of doing it is you can actually retail all of them in bulk by clicking on bulk retail multiple invoices. Select the invoices and specify which category and what margins you want for that category, and then retail those invoices out so that it'll clear them off the log. Make sure you do that before you actually do an adjustment, otherwise your adjustment numbers are not going to be proper once you retail those invoices. Your adjustment numbers are going to change afterwards. So once you've done those adjustments, now you have all the reports and everything that you need in the system. For example, if I go into grocery, reports, profits. Based on what you're selling, the system can now tell you what your profits are for each category. If you want to look at your sales, you can come in here and you can specify a particular date and run the report for your sales. So it will tell you the sales for each category based on what you're entering into your day report. You can also come in here and you look at all your purchases. Now for the purchase element, you can look at it day by day, You can look at a vendor summary where it will run the report for you for a particular vendor. Now this report does take a little while to generate, so you have to be patient sometimes. And once this report generates, you'll basically be able to see the vendor, how much you purchased, what the retail value was for that vendor. So for example, here it tells you how much you purchased from this vendor, what the ratios are, etc. Right? So it gives you all of that information, and you can print this out as well as export it to Excel. You can also look at it by vendor details, saying that I want to look at it, let's say for example my Coca-Cola vendor. Run the report. I can see all the purchases for Coca-Cola, when they happen, etc., and what my margins I set for that vendor. You can also go in here, grocery, and you can look at ratios. Now this is a very, very important report right here. So if I go into, let's say, my month of December, I look at my sales to purchase ratio. This is a very accurate estimation of what your current margins in your store are. So currently right now I'm making 32% across the board, with about 16% in beer, 18% in cigarettes, 50% in soda, and about 48% in grocery. The reason this number makes sense is it looks at all your sales for that month and all your purchases for that same month. Assuming that you're buying only the things that you're selling, this number is a very good estimation of what your actual margins are in your store. Now, if you go into the other report, which is your purchase to retail ratio, and you run this report, this system tells you that, hey, based on how you're retailing your invoices, you're actually setting your invoices to be at 23%. You set your target at 30%. But if you go look at your actual, how much you're buying and how much you're selling, your margins are only 16%. So you need to either adjust your estimates or adjust your retailing to get these numbers to match up. This is a little confusing, so if you ever need help on this, please don't hesitate to call CStorePro at 281-265-2299. Now, you also have this inventory report, which will give you inventory. So let's say I run it for January. It'll tell me what my day-by-day inventory at cost and my inventory at retail was, and also my variation, as well as what my actual is. So it tells me that, hey, on the 4th I had an adjustment. So this was my actual, and this was my net. So my variation was very little for this day, but I did have an adjustment of about $8,000 in my cost. And it tells you what your running inventory is day by day. You can also look at this at the retail level, and it'll tell you what your running inventory is at day by day at the retail level. You can print this out, export it into Excel, whatever you want to do with these reports. So that's pretty much the gist of, calculating inventory and looking at all the different reports that are available in the system. The main thing to keep in mind here is be sure to set your categories up before you start. Do your paperwork. Make sure you retail all your vendors and enter in your initial inventory by going into grocery and inventory adjustment. And then when your inventory guy comes in, make sure that you're doing your inventory adjustments on a regular basis in CStorePro. That will get you set with category level retailing in CStorePro. If you have any questions or need any help, please don't hesitate to contact us at 281-265-2245. In the next video, we will actually cover item level retailing. So if you want to do inventory at the item level, we'll talk about that in the next video. Thank you guys. Look forward to you guys watching the next video.